Well, how do we know that our information is secure? Because we're holding a lot of client information, a lot of sensitive client information, and our organization itself has got a lot of important information, customer data, IP information, and so forth. So how do we really know ourselves whether we've got the right things in place to protect that information? In this video, we're going to go through this best practice gap analysis. In this gap analysis, this document will take you through all the key clauses of the ISO 27001 standard. And as you go through each one, you'll be able to document where your organization is positioned in terms of, do you feel you meet these standards or you don't? As a result of this, you'll start forming your own gap analysis. So although you may not necessarily have a requirement to get certified, but this checklist at least enables you to give yourself some assurance that what you have in place is either very closely aligned or is perfectly aligned to a standard. And then you've got the systems, the process, the procedures and policies in place as per the clauses here that would potentially meet certification. This document is useful in that an organization may be a position that they feel they've got a number of, they've got information security in place. They got the infrastructure in place, the processes and procedures in place, the policies, the infrastructures, and all the necessary controls to safeguard the information for their organization or for their clients. The next step is the organization may then want to go the next step further and actually acquire a certification, an ISO 27001 certification from a certification body like best practice. So they may want to get an understanding where they are today and versus what the standard is asking them to be certified. So by looking at this document, this gap analysis document, it takes you step by step, as in a checklist, takes you step by step for each of the clauses of the standard, for example, the context of the organization. So they'll give you an understanding. It gives you a brief description of what is a context of the organization, meaning what are your internal issues that may infect the safeguard of your information, what are some interested parties, are they government regulations, are they technologies, what does your customers' needs and expectations of your organization to protect their information. So you'll have an understanding what you've got in place today and what the standard is asking. And it's as simple as, do you feel you've got what it takes today to meet the standard? If it's a yes, you tick yes. If it's a no, then you know this will give you an indication you've got a gap between what you have today and what the standard is asking. And it's also useful to justify yourself if you think you do have the capabilities to write down here what documentation you may have or what evidence you may have to support that of answering yes. This is just the first part of the clause 4. Then as you go along on each page, there's all these sections called leadership and commitment. That basically says, is your top management, executive, C-level management committed to an information security management system? Have they set policies and endorsed policies? Do they promote the policy throughout the organization? Is it easily accessible to the people in the organization? So that's just one part of it, but there's many aspects to that. You should go through that. And as we go through further, this is section 6 called planning. That's where you would look at your risks and opportunities. What are the risks that the information would lead to a loss to confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information? It could be, you may have risks in terms of security of data centers. You may have risks in your networks. Have you got the necessary firewalls and protections in place to ensure that you're protected against viruses, malware, and so forth? So each organization will have their own set of risks and opportunities depending on the scope of your ISMS and depending the type of organization that you are. And as you're looking and doing a risk assessment and opportunities here, and along continuing to the next page, essentially this is asking you, have you done a risk assessment? In other words, if you look at a particular risk, what's the likelihood of that risk occurring and what's the consequence if that risk was to materialize. Then you go through a process of risk ranking, putting a score against them, and then looking at what are your risk options. Do you want to accept the risk? Do you want to transfer the risk? Do you want to mitigate the risk? Or do you want to eliminate the risk? Then from then on, it goes through a further exercise here. Then what controls would you put in place to address those risks? And as you're going through each section here, again, it's an easy tick box of yes, you've got these in place. No, you don't have these in place. And as you get coming along and as you're progressing along and you're finding you're ticking a lot of yes, then that'll give you a kind of bit of comfort that you are aligning very well to the ISO 27001 standard, and perhaps you are in a very good position to begin the process of certification. Next section is 7. It's basically resources, competency levels of your staff. That's looking at your roles and responsibilities. Have you got the right people in place, the right qualification, experience, and training for them to be, to be part of the ISMS, to be part of the management system. And here, section 7 is about documentation control. Have you got good traceability of your documents, version control, naming conventions, and so forth? Is your documentation available to all staff? Number 8, operational. This is where one will demonstrate how your controls are actually implemented and are they effective. Number 9 here is what's called monitoring, measuring, and analysis and evaluation. Here you're, for example, monitoring your capacity management. Have you got enough capacity in your infrastructure? Are you monitoring the effectiveness of how your controls are working? And really, once you get more familiar with the standard, there's a section called Annex A of controls. And basically here for 8 and 9, you'll be looking at measuring and monitoring how effective those controls from Annex A are effectively working in your organization and in relation to your information management system. Section 9 is, and combine all the section 9, is about the organization performing their own internal audit on the information security management system. In other words, performing your own internal audit on ISO 27001 internally. Then, once you've established your audit program, you've conducted the audit, you've documented your findings, the next step is for management review. For the management to review the audit findings to see where there's areas of improvements or where there's non-conformities and which action plans needs to take place. And then finally, section 10 is about correcting those findings from the internal audit and where you can improve your management system, because what you'll find is with the management system, ISMS, it's continual improvement. It's a cycle of what they call a PDCA, plan, do, check, and act. And a number of these sections, the first 4 to 7 sections of the clause is your planning to implement your information management system. 8 is when you're applying the controls, implementing controls, it's the do. The check is the actual internal auditing, measuring, and monitoring. And the action is addressing any non-conformances and continually improving your management system. So that's, a very good checklist to gauge where your organization is, where it is today, and how much you need to do to bridge the gap to be able to start the journey of certification. In brief, ISO 27001 ensures you've got a system, a management system, a system in place that ensures you protect information against loss of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If you're looking to be certified for ISO 27001, or you're just simply interested in doing your own gap analysis, click on the link below this video.